This episode is part of the Veterans for Peace national campaign to end genocide and state repression here at home. We hear from Olga, a former Air Force major and surgeon, about her experience at the Air Force Marathon weekend, which was her first time stepping into activism. I met Olga for the first time at our national convention this summer, where I learned she had just recently separated from the Air Force only weeks earlier. A new member of Veterans for Peace, she was inspired after seeing the Military Off Our Streets action at the U.S. Capitol in June 2024, a collaboration between Veterans for Peace and About Face, Veterans Against the War. Our discussion today looks back at what happened during the marathon, the exchanges with security forces, the responses from runners and spectators, and what it means to stand for peace in a military space. Here's the conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Good. Um, so you and I first met just a few weeks after you had separated from the Air Force. After serving as a major and a surgeon, that was new to me. You told me that what really sparked your interest in activism was seeing the Military Off Our Streets action in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. So we can start this, I think, by you sharing how that moment led to you into activism and what moved you to take part in the marathon in the weekend in the first place. Does that sound
Sure.
good?
Yeah, I mean, there had been a lot of this energy bubbling up inside of me that had really nowhere to go, and I was trying to look for ways to channel it through activism. And once I saw that action, I was trying to figure out who was leading it and what the organizations involved were. And then when I got an email from Veterans for Peace announcing that the convention was in Las Vegas in August, I realized I had to attend it and see if like these were my people.
Mm-hmm.
And having met everyone there and hearing about all the different actions that people had done over years and decades, it was just really inspiring. It felt like a safe place, being amongst all the like-minded individuals. I started kind of brainstorming how I could contribute, and I missed the Fast for Gaza, but having been a longtime runner and seeing the Air Force Marathon flyer again, I thought this might be like a really great audience to um, expose people to the idea that, we don't have to just always do what we're told. We need to consider our actions, consider why we're participating in these, I'll call them conflicts, but
The
I mean,
that venue seemed like the right audience. I assume you have skills in running marathons too. So you were ready for that, ready to go. So it was a good fit, right?
yeah, I have been running since middle school. I ran in college. I've done some races since then.
Mm.
I really enjoy it. I mean, it's good exercise, but I use it more for mental health, if anything.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, like I said, it seemed like really good audience, because we talked a lot about like recruitment and planting the seed
Hmm.
of, are you sure that you're proud of what you're doing, what your service is actually entailing, and is this what you actually signed up for?
Getting them to question things like that sounds like a good strategy, since they're still in and they have the ability to modify their behavior while they're in still. How did you connect with other Veterans for Peace members to plan what you do that weekend?
I proposed this idea to VFB National. It seemed to be well received, and they pushed out an email to the membership to see if people would be interested in either joining or supporting me. Um, and I had a few local members reach out from the Columbus, Cincinnati area. Um, there was Steve, who offered to house me and provide transportation. He's a longtime VFP member.
Mhm.
He actually has peace doves at his house from a local peace museum, which I thought was really neat. And then another guy, Dirk, reached out because he had already been considering doing some action at
Mhm.
the Air Force Base. And he ended up doing a lot of the coordination with the Columbus chapter and, other VFP allies in the area. So we ended up having a really good turnout for
Excellent.
how late we planned everything.
Yeah, I remember when you brought it up, it was just less than a month away. And so that's great. You got it together. We got some people, some resources together. Do you know Mike Cadence by chance out there?
Yes, I spoke with him several times. He was working on another
Oh,
art
okay.
project, so he was not available, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Okay. So, if you could paint the picture for us, what was it like the morning before the race and the runners warming up and the atmosphere around the base?
Hmm. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to back up a little bit to the day
Sure.
before, actually. Um,
Okay.
so the expo was where all the runners went to pick up their packets and like their bib numbers and kind of shop around for running gear, etc. So we set up in front of that building the day before with signs and with our literature, and we were hoping to have an audience there, interact with people, and a lot of people were just sort of driving by. We had uh, primarily neutral interactions. And then there were a few that were, very positive and very supportive. Um, it seemed like people wanted to engage, but were perhaps nervous too. Um, so then the day of the race, we planned on bringing the signs and then setting up at the starting line. And then most of the race is actually within the boundaries of the Air Force Base, and there's a portion that goes through town. So we had to think about the logistics ahead of time. Um, and then we knew that most of the spectators would be actually in the town portion. Um, I carried a flag with me. It was a Veterans for Peace flag. Um, and then after the race, we, wanted to kind of stick around and try to talk to people and engage with the spectators and some of the runners.
This is like leading up to the actual starting the race, right? And then how about after you kicked off and started the race? Did you get to engage with anybody along the way?
Yeah, there were a few runners who, came by and just ran alongside of me and asked questions. And I told them about the organization, what we kind of stand for. So we would chat for a while. A few people just said that they liked the flag. Um, the aid stations were staffed by a lot of college students, so they seemed to be like really receptive to the message of the flag. And then I wore a shirt that said "No More Wars,"
Hmm.
so a lot of them seemed happy to see that messaging in particular. There were also people who weren't as happy, perhaps. So before I started, we had security forces approach us and tell us that we couldn't protest,
Mm.
even though we weren't chanting, we weren't doing anything. We were just holding up a few signs that said like "No troops on our streets" and "No more U.S. weapons to Israel." Um, we pushed back a little bit and we, try to understand why those were not okay. We were just expressing our First Amendment right. And we were told that this was federal property. We weren't supposed to be there.
Hmm.
So at that time, I slipped away because I wanted to make sure that I was still able to run the race and push the message. But some of my uh, crew members had to leave.
Mm. What was going through your mind when it was happening? I guess it was you just wanted to complete the mission. Sounds like so you slipped
That's
away.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
gotcha.
I wasn't sure if flags were allowed. I read through the rules and
Ah.
regulations really thoroughly. You know, I wasn't sure if that was going to be considered a weapon of some sort, but I kind of kept it hidden until we started. And, obviously being corralled in a small area in a big crowd was not going to be great.
Mm.
But once we got going, I kind of unfurled it and carried it with me. It was easier than I thought it would be.
Nice. Did anyone's reactions to you really stick out to you while you were going, whether it was a positive or a negative gesture in general?
No, I would say that there were a few themes that occurred. So any like law enforcement or military service members that were along the course providing security, they were all very like flat face, very neutral. Um, I did see some eyes linger, like whether it was, on the shirt or the flag. They were curious at least.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then once we were running through town, uh, did receive some cheers and some, whistles, that kind of thing. Um, I think people are a lot more uncomfortable confronting you in person uh, than they are on the internet. So I think that was probably why there were very few public negative responses.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of the positive encouragement and validation that occurred was very like low key.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. On a recent action that I did at Naval Postgraduate School, there was a lot of support, but then the people that were not so happy were really quiet and kept it to themselves, but they definitely let you know the bird, things like that, under their breath.
sure.
Which is
Or
interesting.
maybe they just kind of avert their gaze and don't make eye contact. There was a lot of that as well.
There was a lot of that.
And I mean, I understand it. This is an area that's very much dependent on the defense and the military economy. So
Yeah,
their livelihood and
yeah.
facing that is going to be uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. And that's I was thinking about like counter recruitment almost. You're not doing counter recruitment. They're already in, the people that are in. But now that they're in, you want to you're educating them so that while they're in, they can actually get to action and maybe do something and think about what they're doing. Think twice about what they're doing, I would say.
Right. I think just promoting the messaging of
Hmm.
you have the right to resist any unlawful orders. You have the right to question um, those things. I think that's important. We have to think for ourselves.
Mm, absolutely. So anyone, if there was anyone listening that is also interested to get into activism, um, I guess what are some lessons learned on this one that you're going to try to apply to the next time you're going to do this in a year, or even the next action that you do? Some things you want to carry forward.
Hmm. I think you have to think about your audience, like whom you're targeting and what you want your messaging to be.
Mhm.
Um, you have to remember that in order to be effective in your messaging, you have to meet people where they're at. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes being overly confrontational, I think, isn't gonna be super effective. And otherwise, I think it's important to know our history. It's important to know what tools we have at our disposal to get engaged in activism, but you can also sort of make it your own and be creative in how you want to use your skills, whether that's art or some other method of um, reaching others and spreading the message.
Mm, excellent lessons, ideas. On the overly confrontational, um, that makes a lot of sense. I remember when first joining VFP, I was a little more overly confrontational at the beginning, and I still am sometimes. Recently, I met with our congressman with the Peace Coalition around here, and I found out very recently that that interaction turned him off from wanting to even work with us anymore
Mhm.
because I was so outspoken in what we were saying about Gaza. And so it's a lesson that I think is really important in our work. and so that we can be effective. I think there's a time and place to be performative or even get to straight action and be in be upfront and outspoken. I guess it's a time and place, as they say. But if we really are trying to work with the people that can make change, like political leaders, things like that, I think, and then people in the military as well, um, that are in positions of really, really hard positions, maybe giving orders that they not exactly agree with, giving them the ability to think about it rather than turning them off,
I guess my
right?
take on it would be that it's always a good idea to start with curiosity and
Mm-hmm.
try to understand where people are at and where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I think different strategies will work on different people. I think, shame is a very powerful motivator for many people. And for others, it's just going to make them retreat.
Yeah,
So I think it's important that we, take that feedback and use it to better understand like what the right strategy is for every individual person.
absolutely. Knowing it, like you said, think about the audience. What is it that they want to hear or can do or are willing to accept? Um,
Doesn't mean that you should dilute your message, but I think you just
mm-hmm.
have to be intentional.
Mm-hmm. And tactful. Intentional
Sure.
and tactful. Is there anything I'm not asking that you think I should ask right now that we want to include?
Hmm.
Want to share?
Um, I guess we can mention that there's other similar events. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there's an Army 10 miler that's happening in DC this month. There's a Coast Guard marathon that's taking place in April. I would really love for there to be maybe a VFP running club. I think that would be really fun, while also doing the work of obviously like promoting the message and trying to um, bring people over to our side.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good idea. We should bring it to VFP National and see if we can, and maybe the chapters and maybe the post 9/11 caucus. We can ask if anybody wants to start it. No promises from me, Olga, but I will put it on my calendar to be at the marathon next year and run it with you. I think that would be a great goal, and
Good.
love to participate with you.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah.